Hey guys, today we are going to go over lesson 213, writing expressions. So you can go ahead and take some notes on this. Our learning goal today is what does the minus sign mean? What does that little subtraction sign mean? What can that mean? So that's what we're going to learn about today. All right, so there is a couple different things that this symbol can mean here. Okay, so we know we're going to kind of list what it can mean. We know that it can be minus. Okay, when we see that in a problem like 4 minus 2, that can be minus. Another word for it is take away. So it can mean take away 2. Okay, that symbol can also represent a negative number. All right, so that's another thing. It can represent a negative number. Can you think of anything else that it might represent? Okay, another thing that it can represent that we are going to be using a lot in this chapter is it can mean opposite. All right, so last year when we were working with algebra tiles, we worked with an expression and an equation mat, and it was not split into 2 sections. This year we are going to be kind of looking at a mat that's split into 2 sections. Okay, so this top part kind of means, this plus part up here, means exactly what's up there, that's what's up there. It's like the positive tiles. This bottom part actually is going to mean if it's down there, it's in the opposite region. So that bottom part is going to kind of stand for opposite. Okay, so we kind of, just as a quick review, anytime I have shaded in, remember that means positive, and the white ones mean negative. Okay, so here's a couple things. I could put 3 positive tiles up here. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so on this mat right now, I would just have 3. And it would stand for 3. Now, another way to represent 3 would be like this. Okay, so I'm going to erase this. Another way to show 3 would be if I came down to the bottom here and I drew in 3 tiles and I left them blank. So right now, that's negative 3. Okay, but it's actually, so again, I have 1, 2, 3, that's negative 3, but it's in the negative region on my mat. That means it's in the opposite region. So if it's down here, I have to think, well, it's the opposite of negative 3, which actually stands for positive 3. So on the mat right now, that stands for positive 3. Okay, so it's in the negative region, so it's in the opposite. Now I could write this out kind of the long way. I could say the opposite, I'm going to put the negative sign, of negative 3. That's how I would actually write that out. And I know that is actually the same as 3. All right, let's say that I somehow want to represent negative 2x's on my mat. Okay, so there's a couple different ways I can do that. Now, just as a refresher, these ones are x's, the medium-sized ones. So this would be a negative x, right? If it's shaded in just by itself, it's a positive x. Okay, so here's one way that I could represent it. I could put up here, I could draw my 2 x tiles. Okay, and they're negative ones right now because they're not shaded. And it's in that positive region, so this I can rewrite as, it just says negative 2x. Okay, that's one way I can write that. Now, I'm going to kind of erase this. Another way I can show that is I can come down to this. Now, the reason I'm showing you guys this, it's in our math book, but the reason I'm showing you this is because if I was to give you something like this, negative, let's say 2x plus 3. Basically, all this is trying to say is that this can mean, outside here, this can mean the opposite of whatever's in this parentheses, 2x plus 3. So I'm just kind of showing you why that works. So this means the opposite of 2x plus 3. Well, if I want to do the opposite, I have to do the opposite of each thing. So I need to do the opposite of 2x, which would be negative 2x, plus I have to think, well, the opposite of 3 is negative 3. So these 2 expressions that I have here, this one and this one, those are equivalent. They're equal to each other. All right, let's look at another one like this. I have the opposite of negative 5x plus 3. Okay, so if I kind of think of it, I need the opposite of everything in there. So I'm going to start with this part. The opposite of negative 5x is positive 5x plus, now I need to do the opposite of this number. Opposite of 3 is negative 3. So these 2 expressions are equal right now. All right, so here's another example. We have and I want to show this on the equation mat. It says the opposite, you can kind of see that, of y minus 2. So I can actually come down to this opposite region down here, and I can build this y minus 2. And then let's kind of just see how that works. So I'm going to put a y tile, just a normal y tile. So that's the really longer ones. Okay, I'm going to shade it in because it just says it's a positive y right now. And then it says minus 2, which is the same as negative 2. Okay, now let me just kind of show you. Here we have the y minus 2. Down here I have y and then negative 2 or minus 2. And it's in this opposite region. So let's think about what this really stands for. Okay, so if I come down here, this actually stands for, it says the opposite of y, which is negative y. And then here it says the All right, guys, so here's what I'm kind of concerned about. I'm not too concerned that you know all of the algebra tile stuff. We did that stuff last year, not too concerned about that. What I really want to make sure you get is that this little negative sign out here can also mean opposite. So let's think if I have this. Okay, so if you wanted to read this, there's a couple different ways you could read it. Okay, so one way is you can think this sign means the opposite of everything in here. Okay, so the opposite of negative 4, the opposite of x. So I could rewrite that if I kind of think about this now. Okay, so this means the opposite of this first number, opposite of negative 4 is 4. Now, you either need to think, just keep this, if you want to keep it, or you need to put it with the x. I'll just keep it for now, and I'll show you another way. Okay, now I need to do the opposite of x. Well, the opposite of a normal x is a negative x. Okay, now this is still not all the way simplified because there's a better way to write this. So I could rewrite this as 4. I'm going to add the opposite plus x. That's a better way to write that. Okay, now I could have also done it like this. If some of you guys are maybe going to like doing it up here right away where you get rid of the subtraction sign and you add the opposite right away. So if I add the opposite, okay, maybe you'll like it like this. Now I'm going to do the opposite of negative 4, which is 4. Plus, what's the opposite of negative x? X. And I still got 4 plus x. So what I want you guys to notice is that these expressions, this one here, this one, and this one, they're all equal to each other, just different ways to write it. So that's kind of the main focus. There's different ways to write those, but they're still equivalent to each other or equal to each other. We're going to do one more. All right, so here's the last one. If I want to kind of rewrite that better, okay, it's because it looks kind of confusing now with all those minus signs. If I want to rewrite that a different way, here's what I'm going to think. Well, this is just normal 5x, so I can keep that. 5x, I'm just going to write it down here. Now, this can mean a couple different things. It can mean take away that stuff, or you can think it means the opposite of everything in there. Okay, so I can kind of rewrite this as, well, what's the opposite of 3, which would be negative 3. Okay. Now, in here, you got to decide, do you want to change that to add the opposite, or do you want to just keep it a minus sign? Right now, I'll just keep it. Okay, and I'm going to come in here then, and what's the opposite of 2x? It's negative 2x. Okay, and now since I was using this minus sign already, I'm just going to put plus here. Okay, so now if we kind of look at this, let me kind of come back through here and look. I have 5x plus negative 3, and then it says minus negative 2x, so I'm going to add the opposite. So now let's look. I have 5x and 2x, which is 7x, plus negative 3. All right, now I want to show you another way to do that same problem. So some of you guys might like that way. Some of you might not like that way. So I just want to show you there's a lot of ways to think of this, and you have to kind of think, well, what's the best way for me? Okay, because it might not be the best way for me or for your classmates. So here's another way to think of this. So keep your 5x still, 5x. All right, now some people like to do this because they like just to make sure this plus sign is here so they can add, well, the opposite is just a negative sign. So you still have that. So if you like to think, well, I want that to be a plus and I want to make sure I know that, you can just hit plus there. Okay, now maybe that helps you. You can do the opposite of 3, which is negative 3. Okay, and inside here, some people might like to add the opposite right away. If that's you, do that. Add the opposite. Okay, so now I can hit plus, or type plus, and now I'm going to do the opposite of negative 2x, which is 2x. Okay, so now I can add these together. 5x and 2x is 7x plus negative 3. All right, one last way that I kind of showed you guys how to do this last year too is when we did this, when we put that minus sign there, you can put a 1 in front of there if you want. Then you can distribute if that way makes sense to you as well. All right, it's good. So you are done with this video.